victims. At one point, the vandals even exchanged gunfire with police officers, according to media reports. More than 100 people were arrested. 13 police officers were reported injured. But overnight, there was more looting, and hundreds of protesters flooded the streets outside the first precinct, demanding those arrested be released. Joining us to discuss, Brad Polumbo, a conservative columnist and economic fellow at the Foundation for Economic Education. Also, Mark Vargas, a Republican strategist. Good morning, guys. Thanks for being with us. And Mark, we'll start with you because we've spoken before about how you live in the Chicago area, and you've seen firsthand how this violence has impacted your city. Now, Mayor Lightfoot says she's going to take action now, but where was she weeks and months ago?
That's a really great question. And here in Chicago, rioters, it said, are emboldened because there's a system here that's without consequences. It's interesting, the Democrats yesterday were playing the blame game. The mayor was blaming the Cook County State's Attorney, Kim Foxx. And remember, Kim Foxx, she was the individual who her office dropped all the charges against Jussie Smollett. But in the last 3 years since Kim Foxx has been state's attorney, she's dropped 29% of felony cases. And it's very difficult for our Chicago police officers to file felony charges against these rioters. And so it's created an environment that is not only dangerous, but it has now infiltrated parts of the city that otherwise wouldn't see this. Hitting the Magnificent Mile is the equivalent of looting Rodeo Drive or Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. And so the mayor has blood on her hands. The city is in turmoil, and it's time for the mayor to stop talking about this and actually do something about it.
Yeah, we'll see if she does. And of course, it raises the question of, if you have some repeat offenders who are released again with maybe just a slap on the wrist, if that even, should we be surprised that we're seeing this, this violence happen? And Brad, when you do see people vandalizing stores and stealing merchandise, it's also interesting to see how the media covers this. And you work in the industry. How can you call this a peaceful protest that is legitimately calling for police reform when people are walking out of these luxury stores with merchandise they didn't pay for?
Well, there are a lot of people in this country who honestly believe in peaceful protests and criminal justice reform, but that is not who we're talking about in Chicago. You're absolutely right. These are exploitative looters, oftentimes left-wing anarchists, truly bad actors and criminals who are going and committing acts of violence. Don't fall for media spin sympathetic to them that says it's mostly peaceful or just property destruction. No, when you're burning down stores, people get hurt. 15 people died in the George Floyd protests and riots. So this is not some just property issue. And more importantly, the destruction of property isn't just going to hurt rich companies like Coach that were destroyed in the stores. It's going to haunt those urban and minority communities' economy for decades to come.
Yeah, exactly. You wonder about that long-term implication, especially if you have people willingly wanting to leave the city here, not pay those taxes, not want to live in the city because of the violence. And in fact, Mark, I want to play for you this soundbite again. The mayor of Chicago cutting off the police superintendent after he says criminals are running wild because they're not getting prosecuted. Kind of lies with what your previous point. But let's listen and get your reaction.
Just go by what's been done. There were no consequences for the people arrested.
Greg, let's be clear. I mean, don't bait us, okay?
No, I was asked to ask this.
Do not bait us. Do not bait us.
Don't bait us. So defensive there. I mean, could she really own up to this idea that maybe she's part of the problem?
That was Craig Wall from ABC7, and Craig is a good guy. He's an excellent reporter, and it's just a glimpse of Mayor Lightfoot and her arrogant personality and the way she's come into this office as a formal prosecutor. But yeah, it's true. Kim Foxx's office has dropped 29% of the felony charges compared to her predecessor during the same time period, 18%. But let's not also forget that Kim Foxx, George Soros in February donated $2 million to a political action committee that was supporting Kim Foxx's re-election efforts. But this is just a glimpse. The American people are seeing a glimpse of what a Joe Biden administration is going to look like. And in November, it's going to be a very clear choice: lawlessness and looting, like what we're seeing here in Chicago, or law and order.
Yeah. And I mean, the images, the video, it speaks for itself when you see it. Brad, final thought from you here. I'm just looking at the Chicago Sun-Times report saying that 40 people were shot over the weekend, 4 fatally. That was just this weekend alone. Where's Black Lives Matter movement? Where are they? Are they speaking out against this violence that we're seeing?
Well, there are a lot of earnest people who would count themselves supporters of Black Lives Matter who are, but the official organization most certainly is not. They only care about police shootings. And actually, this latest riot in Chicago was prompted by basically fake news that spread about a police shooting as if it was another tragedy, when in reality it was a dangerous criminal who shot at police. So we really cannot countenance these riots and these protests as if it's justified under some form of a movement, because if anything, it's really hurting the minority communities who will be paying higher insurance costs, who will have fewer economic opportunities and higher taxes, all because of this destruction. So it really is it's a disgrace what's happening.
Yeah, not to mention the people who have to clean up the